Welcome to Thursdays at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. My name is Jessie, the host of this podcast, which is all about beverage innovation. I talk with innovation pioneers from agriculture to glass. This week, I'm speaking with Mary Collineau and Bryce Wiatrak at Vinalia Wine. This dynamic duo is creating one of the coolest businesses in the industry. I'm hooked. Mary, financier turned wine lover, and Bryce, a wine writer, met in grad school and decided to take the entrepreneurial road with their love of wines from all corners of the world. They meet the most interesting people at these wineries through existing contacts or actually travel there themselves, which is absolutely amazing. They find exceptional value wines that we do not normally have access to and for all great prices. The most expensive wine is $35. We tasted 3 wines on the podcast that knocked it out of the park, both in the flavor profile, but also the stories behind them, which makes each one of them special. Please visit Vinalia Wine, VINALIAWINE.com, and check out these amazing deals that you cannot get anywhere else in our industry. If you are looking for a wine club to blow your mind, look no further. Mary and Bryce have done it like no other. Thank you for listening, and be sure to subscribe to be notified of all new episodes. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Thursdays at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. My name is Jessie, and I have Mary and Bryce here from Vinalia. How are you guys doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Excellent. It's always a great day, right? You got to make every day great. Every day counts.
Absolutely.
So, Bryce, where are you calling from?
I'm calling from my home in Chicago.
Chicago, Chi-Town. Love that town.
Me too.
We go every summer now.
That's the best time to come, right? Right now, it's the cold's creeping in.
Yeah, summer is cold there for me, so yeah, that says something. I hate the cold.
Well, then maybe Chicago's not the town for you, but
no.
if you want a nice, mild summer, come join us.
We always stay at the W there, right on the by the Navy Pier.
Yeah.
And we're looking at these people going, how are they in this water? It's freezing. It has to be freezing. They're just, on the beach.
Yeah.
Whatever. I'm like, ugh.
I haven't gotten in the water myself, so I can't speak to that. But we definitely have different definitions of warm.
Yes. Well, I'm from Iowa. And I'm never going to live in the north again.
Nope. Fair.
Too wimpy. But what about you, Mary?
I'm calling in from Los Angeles. I'm a new Angelino, I guess, as they say here. Moved here a few months ago, but it's sunshine, beautiful every day. I'm very spoiled here. It's quite lovely.
Yeah. Yeah, my cousin moved out there, just loves it.
Oh yeah, I mean it's hard not to love it. I went for a walk yesterday morning at the farmers market. It's just, yeah, it's a different, holiday spirit, I would say. I was asking people, I was like, what do you do around for the holidays? They actually have a ice skating rink by me, but it doesn't quite feel the same. It feels a little forced, but I'll take it.
Where did you move from?
I moved from Chicago, which is where Bryce and I were living, very close by to each other. I spent the last couple of years in Chicago, and then due to some personal life changes, moved to LA.
Nice. I love your glasses. Those are so cool. My wife just got a pair of something similar to that. They're so cute. They're so fun.
Thank you so much. Bryce calls them my magic glasses.
Magic glasses.
Good luck.
She gets that compliment with regularity, so they've done well by us.
Yes.
Great ROI on that eyewear.
Yeah.
So I am a part of the norm of complimenting you. Oh, that's funny. So, Mary, do you want to kind of start us off here and tell us about kind of your journey and how you got into the industry?
Yes, I would love that. So my journey to wine was, different than most, and then I'm sure kind of similar. I I fell in love with, kind of drinking wine for when I moved abroad to France. But prior to that, I actually worked as a financial services consultant for 6 years after undergrad.
Okay.
Yeah. So I lived in Chicago. I lived in New York. I was able to drink a lot of good wine on client engagements, but didn't really know anything about it. But I had the opportunity to move abroad to Paris when my, at the time, boyfriend, but now husband, didn't receive his visa. So he had to leave the country. He's French, so we moved to Paris. And it was over there that I just truly fell in love with the world of wine. I made sure.
Right. Happened for me too.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, how could you not? Wine over there, one in France is just so much more affordable. Even like a 10 euro bottle could be phenomenal. And I just made it my mission that with all the, extensive vacation we got over there, that I was.
I know. Like 50 days, man.
Yeah, it was a good 6 weeks, and not including like all the public holidays you get too, which is like great.
Yeah, so don't bash us Americans for not traveling because we have 2 weeks, man. We don't have like 6 or 8.
I know. Oh my god, the bank that I worked for, their employees got 9 full weeks, which is wild. I know, jealous. But I mean, 6 weeks was great. And with that, we went to, all the classic regions, Champagne, Burgundy, Bordeaux. But we also, went to the lesser known places like the Loire, Languedoc, Jura. Also went, abroad, Italy, Portugal, because everything's so close there. And I just really, the more I travel, the more I visit these places, I was like, this is so awesome. I don't it's more than just, a passion project. I really wanted to make this my career and pivot. So I started looking up jobs in wine, and one of the, constant qualifications was like the WSET, level 3. So I was like, all right, this is a way for me to get into it. So I started taking those courses. I'm now a WSET diploma candidate, which is kind of the culmination. It's the last step of the WSET track. And the more I did it, I was like, this is incredible. But there's kind of 2 paths I feel like you can kind of take in wine, more the hospitality service side, and then more the kind of the educational business side. And I realized that I think the business side was more for me. So I decided to go to business school, kind of round out some of those more general management and marketing skill sets while still ultimately having that goal of working in wine. And then I very serendipitously met Bryce first week, who had an amazing wine career, something I was so envious and in awe of. And he was talking to me about his ideas and dreams about working in wine. And I really just was so enthralled. And I'll let now Bryce talk about his story because it's so super exciting.
Yeah, I mean, happy to share more about my background too. If you're ready, Jesse, I don't know if you have any follow-up from Mary first.
I'm always ready. This is my favorite part. I love this part so much. Okay.
Okay, well, it's not our first time telling these stories. Yeah, so I think my path to wine was a little. I mean, I think a lot of it was dumb luck. But I think I caught the bug at a really early age, but it was really just by coincidence. It was the summer before my senior year of college. I had recently turned 21, and my summer plans fell through. So I went on our college job board, and I got an internship at a wine publication. Lord knows why it was given to me. I knew nothing about wine at the time, other than that my parents, drank Chianti Classico and knew to look for the Black Rooster on one of their, travels to Italy in the 90s. That's what was always in the house ever since. But I grew up on that, and I think the first wine I ever had was Manischewitz. And otherwise, other than knowing that I liked drinking wine, I didn't know anything about the specifics of it. But got the internship, had the immense privilege of having my very first editor and then lifelong mentor after that being Karen McNeil, author of the Wine Bible. So got to really study wine on a crash course under her tutelage. And after I was done with school, with undergrad, I actually was pursuing a career in classical music as an opera singer. So I went to get my master's in music, but I specifically chose a program at the San Francisco Conservatory of Music, knowing I could simultaneously pursue wine. So I was working for that one publication after graduation as well, which sadly is now defunct. But over the course of my master's program, my priorities started to realign. As I really fell more and more and more in love with the wine industry, and I started to win a few awards. One of which was at Antonio Galloni's Venice for their Young Wine Writers Fellowship. So I worked for them for a while. And then I also got to write for a number of other leading publications like Wine Spectator and Wine Enthusiast and Wine and Spirits. I wrote a lot for the San Francisco Chronicle. And then finally I ended
Fantastic.
up, yeah, it was amazing. I eventually ended up at Guildson, which was my last role before going to business school with Mary and launching Vinalia. And there I really had the extraordinary privilege of getting to really travel the globe and write extremely in-depth academic articles. That's when I began my track in the Master of Wine program, where I'm now getting ready to sit that grueling exam next summer.
Wow, congratulations to both you guys.
Thank you.
I'm only level 3.
Yeah.
It is punishment. It is. It's hard. I mean, it's at least 2 years of studying, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's you. The Master of Wine program alone takes a minimum of 3 years, but it's a 1% pass rate on your first try. So it very rarely only takes 3 years. This will be my first actual stab at taking the big exam. The stage 2 exam is this summer for me. So keeping my fingers crossed, and definitely have to hit the books a bunch in advance.
It's man, I thought about going into the level 4 of WSET, but I got COVID and I don't taste as well anymore, and I'm like, it's not worth it.
Yeah, it's
so
brutal.
I'm pivoting. Yeah. It's kind of a bummer because all those nuances and little notes that you could get before are just gone, like even in the nose and everything. But such is life. Life goes on. I still enjoy it.
That's
Yeah.
the most important part.
So how did you guys meet?
I have a distinct memory of presenting a 3-minute pitch on why Ina Garten is my idol. So shout out to Ina Garten if you hear this. But it was a business school kind of orientation practice about public speaking and getting comfortable in front of a group. So we could pitch on whatever kind of we wanted. And so since she's my queen, I wanted to speak on Ina. And Bryce happened to overhear me when someone asked, like, oh, who's Ina Garten? And he jumped in, and then we just started talking, and he kind of asked me out on a friend date to get cocktails at this amazing Japanese cocktail bar, Kumiko. And
good tie in there.
Good tie. And
sumo wrestlers.
Yes, sumo wrestlers. Yeah, clearly. Look at that.
Oh, for those of you that can't see, that are listening, Mary has she says she's in her husband's office, so I will take it for her word, and she has just kidding, and she's got some Japanese art in the background, but you'll see it on the YouTube video. So that's what we're kind of laughing about.
Yeah, it was really it was really serendipitous. It was kind of I feel like everyone was kind of, asking each other to hang out for drinks and stuff during the first week of business school, just trying to make some friends. And then I was just very shocked when we just started talking, and he was like, oh yeah, I came from wine and I want to, pursue wine entrepreneurship. And I was like, this is wild, because I wrote my business school essay on pursuing wine entrepreneurship. So like literally, what are the odds of us, there's over 600 people in our class. So the fact that we were, sitting very near each other during orientation was just really, serendipitous. And I believe the universe, talking.
Yeah, it's totally the universe. I love that. That is so cool. 600 students. Wow, that's a lot.
It's a healthy sized class for sure at the University of Chicago.
Yeah. So, how long was the program?
2 years. Yeah. So we just both finished that up in this past June.
Oh, okay. So it's new-ish.
Newly minted MBAs, untethered from the ivory tower and sent back into the world.
So how did the idea kind of come about?
Yeah, so I think Vinalia really is the culmination of a bunch of things that Mary and I were observing in the wine industry. I'm to Mary, forgive me for speaking for you for a second, but falling in love with not just Burgundy and Bordeaux while living abroad in France, but a lot of the more esoteric regions. And I think people have this misunderstanding of France as just being these storied centers of the wine canon of these extremely classic regions, and it for sure is that, but it has a lot of diversity too that is really yet to be untapped by so much of the commercial wine industry. On my end, I had the distinct, unbelievable opportunity to travel the globe for 6 months out of the year for the entirety of my 20s, all for work. I was living in San Francisco.
Wow, that's what I wanted to do.
I mean, it's like anything that I can complain about
So
is just
cool.
like comes across as so obnoxious that it really, really was such a privilege, and I wouldn't take a minute of it back. But I was living in San Francisco. Napa and Sonoma were my backyard, and I'd be there once a week at least. France, Spain, Italy. I would get to go to every single year to cover my beats, but one of the other things that was really cool that I got to do was go to a lot of the more off the beaten track regions, regions in countries like Uruguay and Cyprus and Lebanon and Hungary and, Canada. And there are a few really cool things that would happen when you go to countries like those. I mean, number one is just the quality to cost ratio of those wines just goes absolutely through the roof. And we're living in a time where people, first were getting priced out of Burgundy, and so then they go to Beaujolais, and now Beaujolais isn't really that cheap anymore either. And so if you want to go to these really have exceptional wines that you can still afford, there's such a wealth of that in so many of these places. I mean, not only that, but coming from like really unique indigenous grape varieties as well. So, I mean, you get great wine.
A lot of them
Totally. You get great wine at a really great price. But I think, the second thing that happens, which is equally, or I don't know if Mary, you agree, probably more important, right? I think the thing that happens is like you really feel like you're Anthony Bourdain when you're in these places. You're, traveling down, dirt roads, trying to decipher, road signs and languages you can't even begin to pronounce. But eventually you ended up in the driveway of these wine growers who are stewards of lands that their families have farmed for centuries and are stalwart guardians of their rare heirloom grape varieties and preserving them from the precipice of extinction, or they're persevering with wine growing techniques that have existed since antiquity. And their stories, I mean, are so captivating, matched with delicious wines. And, everything that they have done resulted in, as a journalist, my most read articles, which was great. I did my job well. I got eyeballs to screens or newspaper pages or magazine pages. I kept my editors happy, and I was, very happy with that. But in turn, if you
and you think about too how long these countries have been
exactly. I mean, in the Republic of Georgia, they've been making wine for 8,000 years. But you can see fine Georgian wine, if you look hard enough in places like Los Angeles and New York. But if you get to so many other parts of the country, it's not like they're readily available. And that's really kind of where Vinalia came into play for both Mary and me. Is if you flip the script to the readers of any of my articles, they're sitting there, really kind of romantically attached to the stories of these wine growers, salivating, ready to pull out their credit cards. But unless they go to Expedia and book, a flight to Beirut and then hire a driver to the middle of the Bekaa Valley, there's no way they're going to try that Lebanese Sanso. So that's really, I think, where Vinalia was born, is realizing that despite living in an era where it's kind of unmatched riches in the wine world, the access, even the United States, where we're so privileged to be able to taste so many things, is only the very, very tip of the iceberg. And so many of the most delicious and some of the most interesting wines aren't yet available to the broader American public.
That was so well said. I had Kate Dingwall on a couple weeks ago, and she's a writer for the beverage industry too. She's more freelance, but she does the exact same thing. And so when you said the quality per price, she made a comment that, and she lives in Canada, and she has a younger sister that's probably in her 20s. But what she said was that this younger generation is looking for these exact wines. They're looking for the higher value, lower price wines from all over the world, not in the regions that are typical, because they're so expensive now, and that's just so cool, like that you guys are representing what that is,
Exactly.
because they need that representation, to tell the stories. It's the storytelling that is fun, and
For sure.
gets you, like you said, attached to it, so it's awesome. I love it.
Yeah, we've seen that. I mean, the wine category as a whole has been really slow to adapt to the changing consumer preferences. It just their marketing methods of the wine scores and points plastered on bottles just don't resonate with younger consumers. What they want to know is that, who's making their wine? How are they making it? Are they doing it sustainably? And are there kind of, any fun facts or stories, as you mentioned, that kind of go along with these bottles? Because it's this type of information that really drives younger consumers to purchase. It's kind of, part of an overarching trend we're seeing kind of across categories, the rise of conscious consumerism, meaning that people want to put their dollars behind brands that are in line with their own personal values and belief systems, which is why, we at Vinalia, as a woman in LGBTQ plus owned business, we're incredibly judicious in selecting producers that really are in line with our own mission and supporting the underrepresented parts of the wine world, whether that be lesser known grapes and regions, focusing on emerging economies, minority women wine growers, and not just that, but share all those incredible stories with our consumers, because for us, these are true stewards of tradition that we're working with, and we're just like, the vessel to communicate these amazing things that all these people are doing all over the world and connecting them with, consumers here in the US.
Oh, that's so cool. So what is Vinalia?
So Vinalia is a brand. We are also importers, but we have a portfolio of wines that span across the globe. Presently, we work with suppliers in 13 countries to bring in wines all under the Vinalia umbrella. So we are technically importers. We do import them, have all of those requisite licenses.
The fun part of the business
Yeah, we're not bootlegging anything.
that you're going to talk about on a podcast anyway.
But we work with each of our suppliers to create our own collaborative labels and bottlings. So each of our wines, you'll see kind of a commonality of the Vinalia brand across our entire portfolio and the aesthetic and our labels, including the three that you have right in front of you, Jesse. But you'll also see 100% transparency into our winery suppliers, because we don't want to just kind of white label and claim things as our own. Celebrating their stories and telling their stories and championing all of their hard work is really central to our mission at Vinalia. So we are a wine brand. We are importers, and you can buy our wines presently through our e-commerce marketplace, where you can buy bottles individually or search for curated collections that span themes from occasion to region to various aesthetic profiles, like floral whites, which I can't get enough of, and neither can a number of our customers. Or you can join through our subscription service, which delivers 4 bottles of wine for $98, with shipping included. That's how you can buy our wines right now, and then starting at the beginning of next year, we'll be in retail and restaurants. So we're really excited about that.
Yay! Okay, I was gonna ask if you had a plan to do that. That's really cool. So, as you guys are going through all these processes and business creating business ideas and whatnot, do you have any mentors that you want to mention that were kind of helpful in your journey?
There's an innumerable number of mentors, and it takes a village, and that village is much larger than just Mary and myself. There's so many mentors I have back from my journalism days and just from my wine career at large. Again, I already mentioned Karen McNeil, who I cannot express enough gratitude towards, for really putting me on the right path for wine in the first place. And then so many editors I've had the privilege of working with, across publications. I think today, for important mentors to the business, there are a few. We have a full board of advisors, but I think 3 names I would really put forth are, for business just more broadly. One of our professors at the University of Chicago during our MBAs, Professor Lindsay Lyman, who has just been an extraordinary sounding board just for entrepreneurship and innovation generally, wealth of knowledge. Then for wine specifically, my laptop right now for this recording is propped up on the book Wine Grapes, authored by Jose Vuillamo, who, here's just the case for it, but like clearly a massive tome of a book. But he's literally the world's foremost expert on grapes. And I feel like my various wine trivia is pretty strong, but when you get to really the esoteric riches of the wine world, there's nobody who knows it better than Jose. He's the world's foremost grape geneticist. Whenever a new grape is discovered, it's most likely Jose,
wow,
the one who scientifically identified it. And then we at Vinalia get first access, which is really exciting.
Oh, that is so cool.
Yeah, so it is cool. I Jose is a cool cat. I can't, sing his praises more. And then finally, we also get to work with Andre Mack, who has been such a pioneer in the wine industry. He's also on our advisory board. Restaurateur with a number of amazing establishments in New York. But then a wine entrepreneur in his own right with his own brand, Maison Noir, who has done so much to I think, market wine in new and innovative ways for today's new wine consumer as well.
Mary?
So obviously, all the advisors that Bryce mentioned have been just so instrumental in helping, Vinalia just take off the ground, but, continue to grow. I would also just say for me personally, this sounds cheesy, but Bryce has been such a mentor for me in the wine world because I'm still, getting in. Sometimes I feel like a fraud or imposter. I'm like, do I really, have my own wine company? Like, this is wild. I was, working in banks. Yeah. I'm like, is this really me? I don't know. But it's just been so great. Bryce just knows so much about the wine world, and his connections are just so amazing that I've been able to learn so much through him. It's really been incredible. And I also would say, my mother started her own company. Not quite the same, but she had her own Irish goods store, retail, and just having someone that's kind of gone off on their own and do the thing is just really cool, because it's very scary, and you get a lot of naysayers and a lot of people who are skeptical, and I just feel that whether I have good news or bad news, she's just my confidant. I can just talk to her about everything because she knows what it's like to have people not believe in her. And so just talking to her through all the emotions that, go along with starting a business has just been really great.
Yeah. So it's funny. Do people ask you if you're documenting your journey? I get that a lot. And yeah, and I have a weekly meeting with another gentleman that's kind of starting his own business, and I'm like, man, we need to start recording these because, we could really kind of reflect back on this and have our own little, movie, I guess, of, the progress and the changes and the ideas that come about with those kind of conversations when you don't really expect it, you know, and the challenges and the the things you have to overcome. It's nice to have other people that are doing the
For
same
sure.
thing, because you're like, oh, okay, that's normal.
For sure.
Awesome.
Yeah, I literally just at Thanksgiving, one of my uncles said, like, recommended that I start journaling because he was like, in a year from now, 6 months from now, this is going to be so great for you to see. And I was like, you're right. That's like Uncle Billy. That's probably would be very worthwhile because every day there's something new to journal about for sure.
What about any resources that you've used growing through your careers or anything that you guys want to shout out?
Gosh, I feel like there's, again, just like mentors, there's no shortage of resources that we take advantage of on a daily basis. I, I mean, yes, I mean, just for wine generally, I'm a big wine book nerd. I have a nice library of wine books, and I surround myself with them and open them up with regularity. And I think so much of, I mean, Mary, your words earlier were so kind, but like, I think learning about wine, it's really just kind of learning how much you don't know at any given point in time. And there's always so much to learn. There's always regions that I never realized existed. There's always, even within just like a place like Bordeaux, there's some random, extremely obscure ancient grape variety that they'll use to blend that someone's really passionate about, or there's some tiny little micro appellation that, is delivering something that's different from the norm. So yeah, diving into wine books is definitely a resource that I love. I think a resource that has served both Mary and I really well. But beyond on wine books, which are great, I think it's served a resource that has served both Mary and I extremely well, just for entrepreneurship more broadly, is all of the abundant resources we've been given at the University of Chicago, where we both graduated from business school this past spring. From accelerator programs and competitions, where we've participated, to financial resources that they've given us, and other tools and access to various additional mentors. That's what first comes to mind for me. What about you, Mary?
Yeah, I mean, I think U Chicago has been so instrumental in terms of the kind of like the business side. I would say in terms of the wine side, as someone who did pivot into the industry, the W set was really great. For people who don't know, it's the Wine and Spirits Education Trust. It's this global organization based in London that you can take various courses on wine and spirits and sake, and it was just a great introduction to the world of wine, and the way the learnings progress as you kind of move up in levels. It really gave me the vocabulary and kind of the knowledge that I needed to prepare myself for this career in wine. It's very much on you to memorize all the random geographies and appellations and grapes and stuff like that, but I just thought that was so immensely helpful for me.
With that, did you use 3050 at all to study?
No, I used like Brainscape. Is that what it's called? I think it was Brainscape flashcards. Were really great. I just would like constantly quiz myself over and over and over.
That's what they do. They're based in London. I interviewed Chris. We talked so much I had to separate it into 2 episodes because it was so much fun. But yeah, if you're done now, and I've talked about this on other podcasts, but definitely if you're going to study WSET, go to them. 3050. The resources are amazing. I wouldn't have gotten my merits in both the tasting and the written without it.
Well, that's awesome. No, I'm not done with the diploma yet. No, it's still a work in progress.
Diploma, I don't think.
Oh, they don't do. Oh, yeah.
Do check it out because it could help. I mean, they're masters at it now. That's what they do.
Oh, okay. Well, definitely check it out. But also, yeah, there are just so many books out there. I mean, I got Caramel Deal's The Wine Bible, which is great. I love the Champagne region. So I have this like massive, I just like bought this massive coffee, well, what most people would think of it just like a coffee table book. But for me, I'm like, oh, I just want to know everything and anything about that place. It's just so much, brings me so much happiness. So and to Bryce's point, the more the more you learn about wine, the more you realize you know nothing about wine. And so just, I guess, surrounding yourselves with like-minded people is so great. And it kind of makes the whole world less intimidating. Because let's be honest, sometimes the wine world and the people in it can be a little intimidating. And so it's all about, getting that confidence you need.
Yeah, no, it takes time because it's not a small industry either. I mean, how many grape varietals are there? I mean,
10,000. I mean, they've identified at minimum 10,000. That was at the publication of the first edition of Wine Grapes. I talked to Jose about this, and they said if they had to, and they detailed in the book. So there's 10,000 grapes that they know of. It says this. They detailed 1,368 of those grapes in the book. And he said if they had to do it today, there would easily be at least double, just because they're constantly discovering more and more grapes ever since the advent of forensic science in the 90s. So there's just like a lot of there's no shortage out there. And I think every day too, grapes that they think that they're growing, they're realizing that they're growing something else entirely, and it's also delicious. And so it's not. There's no shortage of stuff to explore.
Yeah, that's for sure. You can master it your whole life and study and try to master it for a lifetime. Yeah, for sure. But that's what's fun about it too, right? And that's, you're curious, you want to keep learning, and that's kind of the I guess the romantic piece of it that you get to continue to learn.
For sure.
For sure.
So what about any pain points you guys are experiencing? So I don't know if you're already managing relationships in the 3-tiered environment yet, or, any like importing issues that you've come across or anything?
I think we're just starting to dabble with 3-tier. So, haven't flirted enough yet to hit the full on, pain points, but we know they're coming. But yeah, I mean, another kind of founder had said to us the other day that entrepreneurship is waking up every morning and like opting into chewing glass and then going to bed and doing the exact same thing the next day. So every moment is a pain moment, and we just have to constantly remind ourselves to celebrate the wins. But I think for us, I think what it is. It's totally masochistic, but at the same time very fulfilling. So I wouldn't choose anything else. But I think just one pain point that I can speak to of the infinite numbers that come with launching any business, not just wine. But for us, I think being a physical good that also is working with suppliers all around the globe, that the legal infrastructure of importing is fine, but really there are just so many moving pieces at any given point in time that also being a subscription service with a cadence of having to deliver 4 new SKUs to our customers on a recurring basis. That just getting the timing right, knowing that we need to get these wines in from this country or this country. Getting all those things timed correctly has definitely been a learning curve, and something that we've gotten a lot better at, even in our short time that we've been, in market. But, definitely was something that we had to learn how to do, because we're coming out of COVID and shipping prices were high, containers were few, shipping lanes were crowded, ports were backed up, figuring out, okay, like getting a wine in from Spain is not the same sort of deal as getting a wine in from Armenia, and really understanding, the time requirements for each of those.
Yeah. And I would say in a similar vein, so kind of like all businesses, if you're starting out, my biggest challenge is I don't know what I don't know. And it's just, there is no roadmap. We can talk to mentors, other founders, and, listen to podcasts and read books. But at the end of the day, there, we are very much navigating uncharted territory. And and sometimes it feels like you're playing whack-a-mole, where like just something comes up and you gotta like hit it, and then another thing comes up and you gotta hit it, and then like you're trying to stay on track, but then this other thing comes up, and then you're just like, what do I do? And there's no, like, you got to make that decision. You got to be the driving force and putting the power in your own sails to like get to your destination. And that can be very hard. And there's so much self-doubt that goes on because you just don't know what you're, you don't know if you're making the right decision always. And sometimes you don't make the right decision. It's impossible to always, do everything perfect the first time around. But all in all, it's just been, probably the most rewarding and, best learning experience I've ever done. And I would say having, a co-founder to do it with is just like so great, because I can imagine doing it totally alone would be a very isolating and that much harder, to do this.
It wouldn't be as much fun.
Oh yeah, for sure. Not nearly as much fun. To celebrate those wins.
Yes, exactly. And go big. Have some wine. So how do you find these different vineyards and wine companies around the world? How does that work?
We do it in a few different ways, really depending on the country or kind of what our goals are. The very first and the very easiest is, again, I got to do this. Find these wineries over the course of my career as a journalist. So I have a, whole long log of, wines that I just love and, producers that I've written about. And I think, one example there is, Cave Spring Winery in the Niagara Peninsula of Canada, which, in my mind, it easily would make any, short list of top 5 wine producers in Canada. Their Rieslings and their ice wines are unbelievable. Their Cabernet Franc. And so when we knew we wanted to import a Canadian wine, because in the United States, I think most people don't even know that Canada makes wine, but they make delicious wine. They were the first, call I made, and then we're very just fortunate they were willing and eager to work with us too. So, existing relationships is one. Jose Vuillamo, as mentioned, the world's foremost grape scientist. He also has his own wine club in Switzerland that he runs. So he has experience both kind of on the buy side there as well as, just having, this immense amount of, work that he's done with indigenous grape varieties all around the world. So he's connected us to a number of producers, including, I think, the second wine that we've given you today from Domaine Poirot de Vin. That was a Jose recommendation. And then third is really just by going to these places. So the first one you have in Slovenia, I flew to Slovenia and made the appointments a week before and just kind of drove around. Yes, from Merov. And I, hit the car, drove, I think, the entire length of Slovenia in a few days, tasted as many wines as I humanly could, looked at all their Michelin-starred restaurants to figure out, what wines were on their list, figuring out what I should really go be trying, cross-referencing with a whole bunch of books and websites. And then also just kind of some dumb luck of like, well, they're close by, why don't I go visit them? So boots on the ground work. So that's really, that's honestly the most fun way of finding new suppliers, is really just having these, having these true, off-road moments where you get to just really discover and really kind of have that joy of discovery. That's my favorite way. But all three are methods that we use, and all have done well by us.
Awesome. That's very cool. So what was the background into why you decided to create your own labels, which is pretty cool, instead of just using the labels that are already with these wineries?
I think there was really kind of a number of reasons why we chose to do that. One is, I think really kind of the major reason is that with so many of the countries and so many of the grapes that we're working with, if you walk into a wine shop, they're going to be slammed into the corner of the dreaded international section or other reds or other whites that is honestly really, really intimidating to consumers. I mean, they already have so many words on the label that are completely, you cannot even begin to try to pronounce. I mean, people find German wine difficult because German's a difficult language to pronounce. I mean, Hungarian is just like a whole different level of challenge there. And so I think we wanted to make the wines as appealing to consumers as possible, because instead of gravitating away from those corners of a shop, we wanted to really become a stamp of approval and be the brand that represents the entirety of the kind of undiscovered wine world. So okay, you see a bottle on the shelf and you can't recognize its name, you can't pronounce it, you don't know anything about the producer. If you know Vinalia and you really trusted our judgment in buying that bottle of Slovenian wine that we offer, then maybe you'll give us the same shot in trying a bottle of wine from Uruguay. That's really the goal.
That's really smart. Yeah, that's a great idea. How many SKUs do you have?
30, 34 that we have circled. In terms of what we've like released to the public, it's less than that. It's about 25-ish.
Yeah,
or so.
it grows every month. So I mean, as of this weekend, it'll
Yeah.
bump up to 27 or 28, but high 20s at the moment.
What do you think is the outlook for 2024?
Wait, when you talk about outlook, like in terms of like the wine industry, in terms of Vinalia's outlook?
I think both, or a combination of both.
Well, I guess. Sorry, go.
Well, from the industry being, do you see any trends or things that you want to mention that other people may not have seen, since you're going through to all these different countries? And two, yeah, of course, Vinalia. I mean, that's your heart and soul. So we definitely want to hear about that.
Well, I'll let Bryce talk about the wine industry outlook as the MW candidate. I'll reflect to him.
I'm grateful I'm not taking my exam today because I still have some work to do there. But I think one of the trends that we're predicting, I mean, obviously considering that we play right into it, is again a broader interest in, I mean, really a large swath of consumers. I think it's concentrated largely among younger consumers, but I wouldn't rule out older generations too, is interest in discovery in their wine journey. Not just going back to the quotidian Pinot Noir from the Sonoma coast, or Chardonnay from Carneros, or everyday Rioja that they're used to, but really just kind of seeing discovery as a major value proposition in why they drink wine, and something that not only that they find as a value add, but something that they expect really in their wine consumption, is being able to try something new. And we've seen that really take hold in a number of places, really kind of all over the world and the country. We have wine bars in New York that are dedicated exclusively to Swiss wine. We have wine bars in San Francisco dedicated exclusively to ex-Yugoslav countries or to Mexican wine. And I think that consumers are only now starting to realize that they're only hitting just kind of the major marquee regions of the world, and have a real thirst to discover beyond that. So I think that's kind of a major trend that we're starting to, that's really only at the beginning of the wine world. And fortunately, I think it has a lot of legs because there's always more to discover.
Yeah, what is your take on Mexican wine? I mean, I've had Pavel Martinez in Mexico. We talked a little bit about it. Kate's been there, talked about it a little bit. I'm very curious. I've been there and had their wines, and actually they're really good. And it looks like and sounds like there's a lot of investment going in, also in partnerships and whatnot. So I'm curious to know what if you've been there and
I have,
what
and
your thoughts are.
we're courting some Mexican suppliers. We don't have any in our portfolio just yet, but it's on the very top of our to-do list for 2024. I love Mexican wine. I think it has a tremendous amount of potential. The Mexican wine industry is older than our wine industry in the United States by a matter of centuries, not years or decades. They've been producing wine since the 16th century. Founded by the same Franciscan monks and then kind of missionaries that founded California's wine industry. They have a tremendous old vine material, and they have an exciting and dynamic young generation of winemakers that are really taking their wines to the next level today and are experimental, that create blends that you see only in Mexico, that are really quirky stuff. I mean, grapes that you don't even see blended elsewhere. Grapes like Pinot Noir now being blended with grapes like Nebbiolo, which are usually produced bottled monovarietally, and they'll be blended, Pinot Nebbiolo, then plus some Tempranillo, and then maybe some Syrah. I mean, some really quirky stuff that's a mix of Spanish and Italian and Rhone grape varieties and Burgundian and Bordeaux grapes. And they have a really distinctive character that I think can be really, really delicious. You're right. They are seeing a lot of...
Do you think it's because... Sorry. Do you think it's because those varietals have different expressions that are being grown in Mexico?
Partly. I mean, one, you're not seeing them blended elsewhere. So you're now saying, okay, what does Pinot Noir like as a blending grape, which is not something that you see in France outside of sparkling wine. I think, so yes, Mexico certainly has distinctive terroir, as you have, in pretty much any wine growing country. Growing Pinot Noir in the heat of the desert is definitely going to do something different than it's going to do, just south of Dijon and, the colder, reaches of France. But so, yeah, I think it expresses itself differently. I think also just it has different traditions. I mean, as with any wine region, I think, you have to include people in terroir. And I think one of the expressions in wine that like frustrates me the most is, that wine is made in the vineyard, or, like the winemaker does their job if they don't have to do anything. But wine is made by people, and decisions that people make both in the vineyard and in the cellar affect how it's produced. And there's an aesthetic to how wine is produced by a number of Mexican wine growers that is extraordinary and distinctive and well matched to their, extremely complex and nuanced and localized cuisines and traditions, that I think is really exciting, and I think the surface is only being scratched today by people outside of Mexico getting to discover those wines.
Oh, that's so exciting. Yeah, they don't have enough to export probably. I know there's some, but not the masses or anything. Speaking about Japan and constantly learning, we went to Japan this summer, and I learned that there's 80 wineries in Japan. I had no idea there's that many. And that was a real cool discovery. I mean, we didn't get to go to any. We didn't have that kind of time or anything. But have you discovered or gone over there to look at any of their vineyards, or, talk to anybody over there?
So I actually was in Japan for my honeymoon in March, and I was there for 2 weeks. And when you think of Japan, you really just think of sake as like the wine, the rice wine in Japan. But to your point, there is some amazing wine that's being made in Japan. However, it is nearly impossible to find back, here home in the United States. So being the wino that I am, I made sure to target a lot of those kind of wine shops and bars to taste some. I fell in love with Muscat Bailey. It grown over there. It was like a kind of a chilled, kind of lighter red expression of it. It was phenomenal. And I would say for Bryce and I, it's definitely something that's on the list, because we've noticed, especially post-pandemic, there's really been a rise in interest in Japan. And a lot of people are going to Japan, and they're, whether it's the cuisine, the film industry, the clothing, it's I find that American consumers, especially younger consumers, are just fascinated by the culture over there, and it really seems like, their wine would be an exceptional fit for the Vinalia portfolio, because I mean, what is Japan without its history and culture? They are, they have one of the most richest cultures and traditions in the world, and their winemaking traditions are no exception. So it's definitely something that we're eager to have. Oh, Bryce
So
you had a
koshu
koshu the other day.
A grape that's indigenous to Japan or China. I think it's a little tenuous exactly its origins, but today is widely associated with the Japanese wine industry. It's one of the curious things about it is that it's 95% Vitis vinifera, which is the Eurasian vine species that comprises almost the entire world of fine wine, not entirely. And we have some examples. We have one example in our portfolio outside of Vitis vinifera exclusively, but typically those grapes are all, those grape varieties are all native to the kind of broader Mediterranean basin. So to have one hailing from East Asia is fascinating. It's a pink skin variety. It usually produces some lighter bodied white wines, but they're very precise. They're very chiseled. And I think like so much of Japanese culture, both in cuisine and outside of cuisine, it's amazing in its nuance. It's subtle. It's not a loud in your face wine. You're going to find very little commonality between Japanese koshu than you would with Sauvignon Blanc from California or New Zealand, but it has a very distinctive personality and matches really, really well to the foods of Japan.
Yeah, that's really cool. Is there any plan or thought about adding sake to your portfolio at all?
I think not at the moment. We're focused on grape wines rather than wines from other fruits or grains or anything else. But all power to them. I mean, just in my personal life, I love to explore and taste different things. I mean, have had some like weirdly good like blueberry wines and stuff that have tannin and terroir. But for us, we're focused on grapes.
Okay.
Never say never, though.
Yeah.
Never say never. Mary, did you want to comment about the outlook of Vinalia?
Yeah, I mean, I think going ahead into 2024, we have so many exciting things that's kind of on Vinalia's roadmap. Bryce mentioned earlier, we are expanding, into retail and restaurants, which is something we're so excited about because, wine is nothing if it's not shared, amongst friends and family in a kind of convivial setting. So we really find that, our wines will just be, do so well in those types of environments that celebrate, the regions and cultures and cuisines that we're all about promoting. So we're really excited about that. We also, have some larger scale events planned for the new year. Because sometimes it's hard, as Bryce mentioned, to travel to the Beckott Valley and all these other places. But what we want to do is kind of bring that winery experience to metropolitan cities in the U.S. So starting in Chicago, we're planning kind of a large scale Vinalia tasting event where all of our wines in our portfolio will be on display. But it's really just going to be about bringing those stories and these cultures and cuisines to life. And making people really kind of feel that they're traveling without actually having to go on a plane. So there's that, and just all the new and exciting wines that we're bringing in and the producers that we're working with. There's new stuff coming in all the time, and whether that our Romanian wines are arriving tomorrow. We have wines from from Armenia and Georgia coming in shortly as well. So just there's always something new with Vinalia, and it's just, and there's some other things that are more in the works that we can't share quite yet, but a lot of exciting things.
That is exciting. That is super awesome. Well, should we try a couple wines here that we got?
Yes, please. So I think Mary and I each have one bottle open, but we sent you three. So let's start off with the white, and I'll guide you through that one, and then pass the mic. So this, I mean, I love all of my children, but we sent you three. I think are our secret favorites. But again, I would stand by anything that we have on our website. But so this is a white wine that we really kind of wanted to take in, to the time of year. It's a great white wine for the colder months. It's from our winery partner in Slovenia called Merov. Now, Merov is in eastern Slovenia, right against the Hungarian border, which is the complete opposite side of the country from most of the Slovenian wines that you see in the United States. Most of the Slovenian wine that you see here is from a region called Brda, which is adjacent to Italy's Friuli region. And they make absolutely exceptional wines as well. Love the wines of Brda, but this is a kind of a different animal. So this comes from the eastern side of Slovenia. The winery is called Merov. The winemaker Uroš has had a really interesting path to wine in his own right. When he was a child, he saw his mother hand graft 10,000 vines, so has a deep history with wine. And so naturally, he became a basketball player for a little bit, and then returned to his I think, destiny of being a winemaker. And I think one thing that Merov does really, really exceptionally is, like so many of the great wine estates of the world, like, Chateau Latour or Vega Sicilia, Merov only releases their wines to the public when they deem them ready to be consumed. So this is a white wine that you have here. It's a Welsh Riesling blend, or Lashki Riesling, as they call it in Slovenian. That it's a 2018 and it's their current release. So it's a white wine that already has 5 years of age on it.
Okay, that explains the color then.
Yeah. So it's meant to be a more gastronomic wine. It's fuller bodied, great for the winter months. It's a great food wine. I'm hoping you're tasting a good amount of texture to it, kind of like the rinds of cantaloupes or yellow apple skin, and kind of a really great savory mineral quality as well. It's a personal favorite of mine, and when it's meant to age.
That is amazing. I haven't tried anything. I've never tasted anything like this before.
That's what we love to hear.
Yeah.
That's the value of Vinalia.
Yeah, that is remarkable. That is so fun. There's just so many things going on, so many sensations and flavors, and they've got a little bit that acid still after it's been in there for 5 years. That's so fun.
Well, I'm glad you enjoy it. Yeah. Serve it at your Christmas table.
Yeah, for sure. What's the price on this?
I think we sell it for $34, Mary, is that correct?
Yep, that's correct.
I don't know. I guess I'm just sort of speechless on this wine because it's so cool.
Oh, good. Well, I hope you and your wife can enjoy it together later. It's one that I remember the first time that I tried it when I was sourcing, and it was my first time ever being in Slovenia, which is a total gem of a country that I don't think anybody knows enough about in the United States. They get like a good amount of tourists from like Austria, which neighbors it, because there's like a lot of really beautiful hiking around there. But small, tiny sliver of a country. It takes 4 hours to drive from one end to the other. But it's behind its neighbors, all of these powerhouses of both European and wine culture, with Italy to the west, and Austria to the north, and Hungary to the east, and Croatia to the south. And I think like so many really special, unique wine regions of the world that are on borders, like Catalonia in Spain being next to France, or Alsace having so much German influence, or Alto Adige having so much Austrian influence. Slovenia's wine industry is such a melting pot of all of these really, really distinctive neighbors that, coming together in Slovenia, has created this really extraordinary and unique wine culture on its own merits. And even being a small country, there's really, really profound differences in how the wines are made.
Interesting.
In each corner of it. It's a great place to travel to too. It's beautiful. It's capital city of Ljubljana. They're really into dragons, so they have like all these dragon sculptures. They have great truffles and they're super cheap. Couldn't recommend Slovenia more.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I think we might be going there at some point. We're all kind of planning our 50th trip.
Oh, amazing! Oh, you should do it. Hit me up
50
for some
years.
Rex in advance, and we can get you hooked up at Maroff for sure. But remember the first time that I had those wines? It was my first appointment of the day in this region, in the eastern part of Slovenia, and it was very kind of like the twilight days of summer, and they were just harvesting their pumpkins for the first time, and this region is also well known for creating pumpkin seed oil, so it was just the aromas of fall were starting to seep in, and it was beautiful.
Nice.
And the first time I tasted these wines there, I just completely fell in love. And when you walk into any of these tasting rooms, it's a total gamble. You have no idea what you're going to get. You kiss a lot of frogs before you find the wines that you love. But these wines were 100% love at first sight.
Yeah, I totally get it. Good find. That's awesome. Yeah,
Thank
good
you.
value too at $34. That's great.
Incredible
For sure.
value. Yeah.
All right, what are we gonna taste next here?
I think next we're going to go on to the Bear Lagoon from the Pomerol de Bon brothers out of the Loire Valley. Yes, that is it, with the lovely dragonfly kind of etched into the bottle. I find that this is one of our prettiest bottles. That actually in the Maroff bottle as well, with the wax, dipped in wax. They're both truly stunning. So this, the bottles are beautiful. Cool. But the wine inside
stands out, right? I mean, it stands out for sure.
It is, yeah. It is very unique. I've never quite seen a bottle with like the dragonfly etched in like this. It's really it's something. Yeah,
that's really cool.
I know.
Very unique.
I know a lot of people ask, a lot of customers ask if we do that. We're like, no, we're really grateful that our producers do it, though. Very, very cool. I mean, each bottle, just like each wine has its own personality. So it's really cool that, sometimes those personalities extend to the bottles themselves. But
do you bottle in the U.S. or do you have it all bottled to ship over?
Everything is bottled with the producer and labeled. So when it arrives at the U.S., it's arrived ready to go.
Okay.
So this wine, unlike Slovenia, which may be a lesser known country, France is not, obviously, in terms of wine production, but the Loire Valley is, and especially where this wine hails from, in the Nantes region, which is kind of the western most part of the Loire Valley, bordering the Atlantic Ocean. I would say a lot of people think of white wine production here, but instead we have Bear Lagoon, which is a rare clone of Pinot Noir. It's 100% Bear Lagoon. So I don't know if you can taste it.
That's Pinot?
No? It's a clone of Pinot. Yes, it is.
But it really has its own completely distinct quality. So like to say it's Pinot Noir is really, really not giving the full story of Bear Lagoon, which is, I don't know. I mean, Mary's about to tell you the whole long spiel, but it's probably my favorite story in our entire portfolio. It's a fascinating tale. Yeah. I would say most people, when they try this, are very surprised that it's Pinot because it is so distinct. I would say you still get kind of the earthiness, the forest floor that, are representative of a lot of like Burgundy Pinots, but I get a lot of like, kind of that violet notes as well, which I do think make it very distinct as opposed to like the classic kind of red fruit strawberry that you often get in Pinot. This wine, with a light chill is amazing. So it's delicious in the summer with a little chill to it, but it's also perfect for the colder months as well. If you are looking for a wine to snuggle up by the fire, you don't necessarily have food, but you just want like that kind of like, the wine that just kind of gives you a hug. I feel like this is that kind of wine, and I'm glad I opened it because that's what I will be doing later tonight.
It's a good day.
It's a good day. It's Thursday, right? It's Friday Eve. So,
Yeah, this doesn't smell. It didn't smell like a Pinot to me. It felt like it was like a heavier bodied wine with maybe even a little spice to it. So, maybe it could have been like a Cab Franc. 'Cause I know a lot of Cab Francs, really good Cab Francs, come from there. Maybe a little bit lighter style Cab Franc. But no, but it doesn't taste like that at all. It's like tastes almost classical Pinot in some ways, and it's got a great long finish. It's fantastic. It's smooth. It's like a party in your mouth. It's like luxury party, not
yeah.
like dance party. like like a 50-year-old party, when you want to sit and just have some snacks and some wine.
For
But
sure.
no, you're right. This is great description.
Oh my God, this is like the Olivia Pope red wine when she's sitting with her glass of red wine with the popcorn. That will be me in a few hours, like for sure. That's exactly the type of wine this is, which is, yeah. And I would say we sell this I think for $32. So for, French Pinot, it's really hard to beat the price in terms of what you're getting with this wine. It's phenomenal.
But I think we'd be remiss not to tell you the actual story behind this bottle, because it's really quite interesting. If Mary, you want to take this one, or I'm happy to as well.
Yeah. So the story with Barrelagou is, as Bryce mentioned, I would say it's probably one of the coolest, if not the coolest story that we have in our portfolio. So this grape went nearly extinct not once but twice, and the Domaine Pro-en-Damas producers are the only ones that are cultivating the Barrelagou grape variety today. That's just how rare it is. So what you're drinking in your glass is something that's very exclusive and unique. And the reason why, why is it so rare? It's because it's had a somewhat of a tumultuous past. So Barrelagou, what the records show is that was first introduced in the Loire Valley around 1490, when at the time France was ruled by the king and the various dukes of the various regions in France. So the Duke of Burgundy gifted vines to the Duke of Brittany, his cousin, when I believe King Charles the Sixth King Charles the First was the King of Spain. I mean King of France. Sorry, not Spain. And he did this as a way to show solidarity against the king. Like we'll stick together, and by doing so, I'll share you some of the great Burgundy wine that we have. While the Duke of Brittany liked the wine just fine, thought it was delicious, it was really his daughter Anne of Brittany, who would later become Queen Anne to not one but two kings in France, that really fell in love with this wine. And she was really instrumental in making it popular across the country, because wherever she traveled, whatever region, she demanded that Barrelagou be served at the royal courts that she was visiting. And so by doing this, people fell in love with it. They, because while it is Pinot, it's not at the same time. It is slightly different. She did such a good job at popularizing it that the King of France found out about it a few generations, on, and deemed it a vin de privilège, which meant that it was such a special wine, it could only be served at the royal court, making it very exclusive, and meaning that commoner people couldn't make it, so they would have to rip up their vines, leading to less production of Barrelagou. Fast forward to the French Revolution in the 1700s, where the commoners rebelled against the nobility, and everything they stood for and represented kind of gone away was Barrelagou, because it kind of died along with the revolution and with those who were drinking it primarily. So that was kind of the first time that really Barrelagou kind of was wiped off the face of the map. Luckily, in 1930, so fast forward, a couple hundred years, a local nurseryman discovered a very, very few overgrown vines and realized that they were Barrelagou. And he was so excited when he identified what they were, decided to plant some more vines. But unfortunately, in his own lifetime, within only a span of, a decade or so, the land was bought, and the Bear Lagoon plantings were either uprooted once again, or just kind of left to kind of overgrown. They weren't used to make wine, etc. So that was kind of the second time that Bear Lagoon was, almost lost to the abyss of vines. But then it wasn't until the brothers behind the Domaine Perron de Bon winery in the early 1990s discovered these very, very few overgrown vines in this former nursery. They petitioned the French government to recognize that these grapes, in fact, were Bear Lagoon, the formal, noble wine of France. And when the French government, validated their beliefs, they gave them permission to start growing it again. So as I previously mentioned, they're the only ones that are making this wine. So it's so unique. And with every sip you have, you are truly tasting, French history, dating all the way back from the 15th century, and seeing how much it's evolved ever since. It's really, really cool.
That is really cool. I love that story, and it's a delicious wine. So I don't blame her. I guess she knew how to get distribution in the early days,
Good.
I demand everywhere we go. That doesn't work so much anymore, but but I love that. That story is awesome. Yeah, wow. It's the storytelling, right, that gets you. Really
yep. And I would be remiss just if I didn't, promote our website, because all like the story of Bear Lagoon, the producers, and all the stories behind our wines are all available on our website, because we truly, it's one of our missions to empower consumers to know about what they're drinking. So for anyone listening who wants to learn more about Bear Lagoon, or the Welsh Riesling that Bryce previously mentioned, or any other wine or grape in our portfolio, the information is at your fingertips. Just head online to vinaliawine.com, where we kind of lay out all this information in a very, consumable manner, because we want people to, get just as excited about these wines as we are.
Yeah, they're awesome. Okay, so moving on to the third one.
Yeah, final wine. I'll take back the mic to tell this one story. So this is it's an Agri Bicaver from a winery called Tot Ferenc in the Eger region of Hungary. It's also another, great winter wine. I think it's spicy. To me, it reminds me like a little bit of the Rhone, like Chateau Neuf de Pape or something. It's earthy, spicy. It has kind of some like rustic tannins, brambly character. It's predominantly Kek Francoche is the major grape in this, but it is a blend. And so Kek Francoche is the same as Blaufränkisch, and actually it's one of two Blaufränkisch blends in our portfolio. The second one is produced by Meroff Winery, the first one that you had. So we're neighboring countries right here, but not neighboring regions. So Eger, it's really close to Budapest, and Agri Bicaver itself also has a really fascinating story. So this wine, Bicaver translates from Hungarian to mean bull's blood. And kind of the legend of Bicaver goes that in the year 1552, the castle in the town of Eger was threatened to be under siege by the invading Ottoman Turks. And so the guy tasked with kind of leading this army to protect the castle, he really thought they had really no chance of actually defeating the Ottoman army. So what he did the night before was he got his entire kind of all of his soldiers, he got them really drunk on the local red wine. And it's a hearty kind of thick red wine. And it kind of stained their beards and their armor, so that by the time that the Ottomans were attacking, they saw this army of people just completely drenched in what they thought was bull's blood. Because the Ottoman Empire being under Islamic rule, they weren't really as familiar with wine or alcohol consumption, and so they didn't really know what all this kind of red liquid was, that was staining their clothing. And they thought they were drinking the blood of bulls, and it was giving them, a veracity that could overpower them. So this one time, they scurried back and the townsfolk of Ager got to keep their castle, at least for the time being. It's a great story, and you see kind of one of the local bulls on the label of our bottle. There's truthfully, sadly, very little kind of likelihood that any of this is true. I mean, we do know at the time that in the 16th century in the town of Ager, it was predominantly a white wine producing region rather than a red wine producing region. So if they were drinking the local wine, it very, very likely would have been white. Today, the opposite is true, though. It is a red wine producing region, and they've really kind of taken that legend and run with it. Their flagship wine is this bull's blood, which is a style of blended red that you find throughout Hungary, but most notably in Eger, so Egri Bikaver. Amazing town with a great wine culture. It's sandwiched between Budapest and the Tokaj region, which is probably the most legendary wine region in Eastern Europe, but has a totally different history from Eger and its wine, a totally different stylistic kind of approach. But this is one of 3 wines that we have from Todt Ferenc Winery, which is one of the very finest in this region, family run. We also have an Egri Chilak that they produce, which is kind of the white counterpart to Egri Bikaver, where the main variety is Harsh Levalu, which is an amazing grape, usually used as an accessory in sweet wine production in Tokaj, but on its own or leading a dry blend can really produce really elegant wines. And then we also have a Leonica from Todt Ferenc, which is a local indigenous grape variety to the region that produces, really kind of beautiful, crisp white wines.
Nice. Well, this is delicious. It's amazing. I mean, it's smooth. It's got a great finish, and I get a little bit of acid at the end, which is like so awesome because it makes your mouth water, and it just obviously it makes you want to have more, but it's part of the finish that's unique to it that I'm really, really enjoying.
Good. Hopefully, it makes you salivating. I kind of crave some of those, hearty like Hungarian stews.
Yeah, the goulash, Hungarian. This is meant to be drunk a lot, alongside goulash.
Wow, that is really good, guys.
Good.
Oh my gosh, it's really good. What does that one sell for?
What does it sell for, Mary?
I believe it sells for.
Know this at the top of our heads.
I believe that one sells for 30 or 30 or 20. Yeah.
So, what are the price points in your portfolio then?
All of our wines are between $20 and $35.
Okay. So these are
they're meant to be accessible.
Yeah. Well, wow. Thank you for sharing those with me. That was remarkable. They're three very, very high quality wines for, $30-$35. It's a no brainer. I mean, I can't wait till restaurants get a hold of these.
Us too.
But thank you. That means a lot. And I think it really, again, kind of speaks to the points that we're talking about at the very beginning is that, once you walk away from places like, Napa and Burgundy, and I love those places. I have nothing against them. I mean, I drink them all the time. But once you're willing to venture a little bit beyond, I mean, you can get so high of quality for a fraction of the price.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm speechless how good these are, guys. You're doing an awesome job. Thank you for doing what you're doing. Be sure to market in Canada because apparently the younger generation is really into it. But you guys are really onto something that's really smart that you created your own labels. I can't wait to follow you guys and the path that you guys take. I'll tell you, I haven't had too many wine club wines or been in wine clubs, but this one I would so be interested in because some in the past you get the same wines over and over and they're not memorable and they're just okay, and then you just get tired of them. But these, wow, I wouldn't if you sent these 3 all every month, I'd be okay. You know what I mean? You can't get tired of greatness like this. These are excellent wines. So bravo guys for taking the plunge and the entrepreneurial world and bringing such treats to us here in the U.S. So, bro, that's awesome.
Oh,
Thank you for the kind words, Jesse. I can't thank you enough for having us, and it's just a privilege to be able to share our story.
Yeah, thank you so much.
It's fun.
Yeah,
it's fun telling stories that are meaningful and historic, and and then it's just amazing that there's all this wine out there that hasn't been discovered. That's so exciting. That's fun. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on. Is there anything else that we haven't talked about that you guys want to mention?
I think we covered, a lot of territory, but yeah, excited to see what comes next in 2024. Like Mary mentioned, we have some cool stuff up our sleeve that we're excited to share. And just, to anyone listening, would love to share some wine with you. So check us out. VinaliaWine.com.
Yeah, great Christmas present.
For sure. A lot of those boxes are easy for holiday gifting.
That's awesome. I love that. So, just out of curiosity, I had Cheryl Dursey on with LibDib. Have you guys discovered LibDib and how that process works? Because it's perfect for you guys just getting started in the distribution side of the business.
We haven't really looked into them extensively, but that's definitely something that I'll put on my to-do list. That sounds really interesting.
Yeah,
I would look to them because she created it out of of a empty market where she would be traveling into markets and setting up all her own appointments. So she's like, well, how can I just get wine in without any issues? Like if a restaurant or retailer wants it, how there's got to be a model somehow, and she created it. And not too long after she did, RNDC kind of grabbed it. And so if you get to a certain volume, then NDC will actually bring it in house.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I think she's in like 10 markets now, I think, or so.
Huh.
But that's an option.
Sweet, we'll check it out.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, well, awesome, guys. Have a good rest of your week and weekend, and Happy New Year, and Happy Holidays, and we'll catch up in 2024. I can't wait. I'll have to catch up with you guys in like 3 or 4 months and see what you're up to.
Please do. We'll be chugging along. But thank you to 2024.
Cheers.
Cheers. But one thing too to think about, if you have a release or you're releasing something that you want to talk about, we can just come on and do like a separate 10 or 15 minute segment and just talk about what that release is, and I can post it.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, we will inevitably have lots of news in the future, so we'll keep you abreast.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do that. Yeah, that way we can keep in touch.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yay. All right. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Yes, cheers. I can't pick up all 3, or I would.
All right, see ya.
I wanted to take this time to thank you all for a wonderful 2023. I wouldn't be here without you. I appreciate and thank you so much for all your time you've spent with me. I certainly love learning about you, learning your stories, and being able to tell the world. It is my utmost privilege and honor to be able to do that. I've really learned a lot in this past year. It's been as a startup, as many of you know, or almost all of you at least know how it feels to get bootstrapping and figure out your mission and what it is you want to bring to our industry and to the world. So I thank you all for being on this journey with me, and I really look forward to 2024. And I've got my Maker's Mark, Santa hat on here, and I wish you and your families a happy holiday and a happy new year. And I really look forward to 2024. Peace out. Tune in next Thursday and have a great week. This week's episode was produced by Fedora J Productions.